until there is an agreement on mitigating of those effects. So with that, we're engaged in a consultation process with the National Forest Service to either develop a new agreement or some other path forward to mitigate the effects of those activities. So, and I should also say that HHPD has been working closely with Navajo Nation, HRC, the Human Rights Commission, and also with local chapters. Just recently, we've been working with Alicia Chi on creating a template resolution to share with local communities in that area near the peaks, but also elsewhere, so they can begin to support activities to protect the peaks. So as a part of the traditional cultural property nomination and listing process, there is a need to define the property boundary. Tim, if it's okay, I'll let you kind of explain the thinking and just the area that we're discussing here and that you can see on the slide.
Sure. We talked about the boundaries for a while, and we sat down with the Forest Service, and this was the original boundaries that we kind of drew up back in the early 2000s. Most of it is Forest Service land. There's a couple private holdings, which are the darker blue part on the map. So this is the boundary that we established, and hopefully you can see it, and you know where we're at on this.
Okay, so kind of back to the new agreement process that I mentioned would potentially mitigate adverse effects from the activities of the concessioner at Snowbowl. In working with the Forest Service, we are going to make a couple of proposals for stipulations in this agreement, and we're in the process of thinking about these, so these aren't necessarily the end all. In fact, we're very interested to hear from community members and council members and other interested folks on what else can be done as a part of an agreement to lessen the impacts from the Snowbowl's activities. But some of what we're going to propose are monitoring activities. This might be similar to what's been done on the Colorado River as a part of the Glen Canyon Dam EIS. HHPD and other departments take regular monitoring trips down the Colorado River, and we would propose that a similar monitoring process be conducted on the peaks, and that both has the effect of monitoring the activities going on up there to ensure that the concessioner and the Forest Service is complying with what they've agreed to in any agreement, but it also allows tribal members, community members, the access and to maintain the connection in visiting as a part of monitoring. And then another proposed stipulation would be having regular planning meetings with the Forest Service and with concessions. There are other examples of this. For example, the Rainbow Bridge Native American Consultation Committee meeting that takes place, and it includes 7 tribes where the management of Rainbow Bridge National Monument is discussed, and advice and recommendations are given to the National Park Service. We would propose that a similar meeting be put together in order to advise the Forest Service and the concessioner. And that would be a collaborative activity with the 13 other associated tribes. Also, probably the most important proposed stipulation would be to request that alternatives to snowmaking be investigated and hopefully implemented by both the Forest Service and the concessioner. You know, in the agreement, we can't necessarily ask them to stop, but we can ask them to try to look into different kinds of technologies or different processes that would restrict the use of wastewater and utilize other means.
Right. So this adds another layer of consultation when it comes to projects in the area. Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, thank you, Tim. The other thing that I wanted to mention about the importance of having the peaks listed as a traditional cultural property on the National Register of Historic Places is that, you know, it forces the National Forest Service and federal agencies to, you know, through an extra level of consideration. It doesn't necessarily stop development, but it is more restrictive. So, you know, it won't necessarily solve all problems, but it puts in a higher standard of sort of practice to mitigate or lessen negative effects. So I just want to make sure that that's a point clearly made, that, you know, when the TCP is listed, that it won't necessarily stop these activities, but it may make it more difficult. And the other important part about the TCP nomination through the Forest Service is that the Navajo Nation is one of 14 tribes that are undertaking this process, and we have been closely engaged and made a lot of progress on the TCP nomination, but we understand that there's been some delays in receiving feedback from other tribes, and that may actually slow down the process overall. So that's important to mention. Okay, and just to clarify what some of the Navajo positions are, I have them listed here, that as in its cultural significance, that snowmaking is a violation of religious freedom, and that the mountain must remain unwounded through development or snowmaking. Also, in the environmental impacts, there are some unknowns with long-term use of reclaimed water on plants, animals, people, and the mountain in general. We do know that wastewater can contain pharmaceuticals, microplastics, and other things. And in the short term, this may not be observed, but long term, there is a potential to impact, and we would pressure the Forest Service and the concessioner to study and attend to these issues. Also, a belief that we should not manipulate the environment with snowmaking. Nature should dictate the existence of snow on the mountain, not people. Related to climate change, there are some issues related to ecological migration, as it's known, and that changes the character of the mountains. As it gets warmer and there's less precipitation, many of you have seen pinyon die-offs. That means that the alpine environment on the top of the mountain shrinks, and that the pine forest kind of migrates up, and then you lose important natural character and natural and cultural resources in the change of the environment. And then I already mentioned the loss of the alpine environment. And then as the environment heats up and dries out, there's also the increased potential for fire. And in fires, there have been use of chemicals in fire suppression, and so fire suppression activities and fires in general most certainly have impacts there. And then there's also the general issue of water usage. And it is the Navajo Nation's position that recreation is not a proper use of excess water during a long-term drought. There are likely many other uses for this water, and that we hope the Forest Service and the concessioner could also recognize this and act accordingly. Tim, is there anything else you want to add on this slide?
No, I think we got through all of it. Maybe just the National Historic Preservation Act, Section 106, the law that gives tribes consultation, or we have consultation, which carries out the consultation and on issues like this.
Mr. Begay, just hold on one moment, please. Honorable members of RDC, could we have additional time for this presentation to complete? About how much time do you need, Mr. Begay?
We're done.
You're done, like complete now?
Oh, that's all. There's a question and discussion session. Oh.
Okay. Thank you very much then. Shanantai, let's have a motion and a second. Chairman, I motion. Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Second.
Stewart.
Honorable Stewart, thank you. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any comments or questions? Chairman. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, you have the floor. Thank you, Chairman and committee members. Then presenters, Mr. Begay, Mr. Danfield, was it? The presenters from HPD, thank you. Reference to consultation process that Forest Service uses AQUAG. Back in 2003, there was the first round of consultation that I know of. So that consultation process where U.S. Forest Service came out to Navajo Nation, some of the communities in close proximity to the San Francisco Peaks. And those are the communities that I represent: Loop, Bird Springs, Tulani Lake, Cameron, Coal Mine. I believe Tuba City was included, Telecom also. So just a handful of chapters where the consultation took place. I think instead of having consultation meetings, official formal meetings, I think they utilize chapter meetings. The Forest Service officials came to chapter meetings and provided information on the time what was expansion for the ski resort, and asked meeting attendees for comments and questions, and if there were none, then that was it. And that was the consultation back then. I think at this point, if there's another round of consultations, I think Navajo Nation could request or stress or even demand that the consultation be nationwide. earlier at the beginning, Mr. McGay, his introductory statement, his descriptive statement there, so it's in relationship to all Navajo people, across our homeland, our great land. So if there's a requirement to consult tribal members of these nations, chapter governments, local governments, they're the place to go. These are chapter houses, are our meeting halls. That's where community members go for information, and that's probably where these consultations could take place. So we have 110 chapters. The Navajo now, appetite. But at 8 about when Belakana Ketchupahan now, Abakagita, Johata, Ibaconson, also Bacado, Abacajo, it's a I said Abakagit, ethanol sauce Bacao. Mr. Begaya, Johan Anigit, Abba, which need now Exahota. So, Debnat Ahaki, Katana, Nen. Dojo ne what analo ski resort iban alte ako hojon schago dorne to yes data na tin jail kit but never not so le nigi 8 million da aje chukadito ko kwagi bahati hiki that council through that consultation. Well, I would ask our leaders, our nation, to make that request. That consultation should take place in 110 chapters. Allow the Navajo people to make comments and ask questions, and also to learn about what Forest Service, what their responsibilities are, as well as the overall plan. I know it's outside the Navajo Nation reservation boundaries, but before these boundaries were set, that was the marker of our homeland, the cornerstone of the great Navajo Nation, the Navajo world, the Navajo universe. So happened it's outside, the federal established boundaries. What the echo? What the echo? She has Chairman Do, Mr. Brigade, Mr. Stanfield, appreciate your report here to the committee. So I want to leave my comments like that for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Honorable members of RDC, are there any other comments or questions?
Chair, this is Daniel.
Honorable Daniels, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Father Dakoto Navajo Nation Historic Preservation Agendan. Nation Mr. Begay. Adonana Koto. Just for the committee's information, so March 4th, I believe it was. But is it like you want to sleep with on a great you get a 20 task force. We're going to be meeting. We've been having meetings. Apologize. We've been having meetings on the former quadrilateral agreement. Back in the 70s, 50 years of age got that on there, so that 50 years is no longer there. In the way between Glen Canyon Recreation Area and also Navajo Nation. So Kari Kodoba Yanani Kodo. So in the way at the last meeting what I told the task force members is to do a tour on the other side of Natas on Pashkai and the Rainbow Bridge could only jet that the need each other what egg the Hashi there's another Nastona and a great Nasal at the Bagan area at the needs it's okay Haki back with the needs so I go you papa the call so na you seen none I hold it or less next month sometime. Okay, March 4th actually we don't need it, but I'll let the committee know. I'll keep the committee informed. So I need to go to the Kujohutlan, right? Bear is national monument, even though it's off the reservation, but on hit that it need go to the Hashin so in her Belkan and Lenigi in Hitty, Sana to Aja. Nevada, Obama, the Sultanata, Nevada, 1.2 million Shiniana, Eota Yakulik as a national monument. I don't stand Trump and stuff. He shrunk the acreage, increased the acreage back to over 200,000 acres a year. So I don't stand Kodona Gay down. Got the Kodota Biden administration the Naitla acreage give over 1 million acres. So that as a year, how the yen on us, I don't know, includes the Nata, as in the Resha Jazz, Anigi, as in us, as so a year ago, he has in so hit a dead ego, then any clinic. Who want but an ad not the touch get out that touch that the land that go to I just think had it in the head I want but I don't know if you go towards Richfield, Utah, I don't know what I don't live price what that I want but not the lot there. So a year ago Nikita dead he got closed has only on and here on the Navajo Nation as well, I don't know the yen has go I don't know that Michigan. So that so 20,000 on play committee members. We're going to be doing a tour for 20 task force along with historic preservation as the initiation as with the Zondo les Kodota committee, RDC committee, as a Mihi Yago, a called Sinko, a best husband or less, a Stokodo, a called here. And he did that need to a called RDC, they really need to be informed about this as well. Kodona, they are with agreement, Kodona, and Hanada, they cannot at Ahagi. So a year ago, Kodona task force a year beneath the Stonana, the advisory committee, the 8 year or a year. So it is about Mr. Chair. Thank you.
A question like here has none. Thank you, Honorable Daniels, for that. Let me go back to Mr. Timothy Begay.
Yes. We need to, I guess we, as far as consultation, the National Forest Service through the National Historic Preservation Act, Section 106, government to government responsibility goes to, our office, and then it gets filtered down to or it goes to whoever it needs. I think Richard might be on the line or Eric is on the line. I know they can correct me. But I knew them. So, Joe, the Nelly, could you Yo toja ka zorgi soft sich ede state register ya aja because I don't know so special sos ala la tio la tati le etani son epen David ako I see don't hikeni nada juna at anita na sini jo ya ishi ajin kidet jo kudoy shin khandelish ako job na bikiyas tkedo job an tas case shin don't need ako the delegate Daniels nini dila kaya da atkon kidet خالق يا كونت is nada milto ado konsen damit sen zilpigin da juda al jo konta hotchi ado tsulzin jo kwayat ado hotchi ko ishin binna aya bin del shiyat di nas sorgi tlo jo kaya nas neli ko di kodonel on di ziltinsen neli da alcho di Navajo بخاطر زوجي طلوع السمر ابن ويا على عند هاللي أكو عجب بدأني شو على بخا تلي على بخا دال أكو ليه كيدا ناخذ داشين إتا إياه the natural resource cultural laws at that time أكو needed the 1967 1968 جو عادون إياه cultural resource laws I don't know I don't understand that شيء كن زاد يا بيديني لنيش أكو إجا بعد عن السنة اللي هاد يا صاد نت أنا هذا اللي هذا شدات ف بس كده بس اللي شدات الحقيقية ده بس كي إيش أبد لحظني تولش what is Mr. Chair
Thank you, Mr. Begay, for that. Actually, Honorable Kealan Begay, Jr., you have the floor.
Chairman, good afternoon, Nando, Ado RDC member. Ado Kodon Snahanaki Ben Natcha. Achit Ada Nix Anit Aged Allah. Doch als no tot toch staat no bij je just go op haar niet so isaba kun musne kwake maar nog het einde wat gaat shahaki to pana shahaki la dat bet citizen for you je tek ido ye naz koko apen soit ashin koto sato be bayas zinge koko. The one thing that I don't know, again, let me know if I'm going in, if I make any improper statement. But Khaled Tinko, Ditzel Linki Din, Ako Khaled Lat Asaki, it ne, Ako Joik bears ears of it abanas the do banas the what end there's no guarantee that the way it's going the land that was given back by this current administration in 2 more years if the current administration will still be in there. They may shrink the acreage again. Could it be more at the federal level as acknowledgement that do you only from Congress? Do we have a treaty? I think that's one area somehow they on that in some case. It all of it that on concession then do it sort of then hapa on and zone kayan hanena akola 80 other special that they call for that ego
to talk about Spanish here. I thought on city no ton lenigi dot decaya. A cotic at the lenigit what in Saskis Halet could this be at the federal level where Kodo Mahasnata Kahaki be his own means so Tridic at Cochindache in Saskis Chaco Canyon. But what ego just or then he Kodo he quack happen now so then you had a so puppet that business. Other that deal yes that they don't need me here. At that level, gosh, be that deal take a gosh big. Joe, what ego go 80 cutting lachity. Like for example, we probably have to deal with the legislatures from the Colorado side because two of the sacred mountains are in there. And then you got New Mexico, and then you got Arizona. Our sacred sites, but the needle be between that that contact further development rather than just registering it as through the program. But there be some type of a mandate at Congress level to say that, so hey, you can't kill enough energy on Navajo. It's that's it. But that's not so this what on high nest Adam that's it don't kill that could take secret to them as well. I don't know, Navajo Nation of course everything begins to start piling up what don't need that from other tribes to say, yeah, and he don't eat on hard or he don't eat on hard or development to get other has always not able for Flagstaff. I don't believe it that can get in the store. Can get in the store or Hawanigi in the edge. A cocoa joke that Hakish this scene to Shani Yego Banet Ego Benakat or put the hot at Arch. And the thing was the 24th, 33, 18th, 19th council that our ego could be has only dashes up being Nick Henry. It what ego could artificial yes and then keep it on the non-mission then keep not recreation at all who don't need a codo response and it in us and then keep it does need now. Late Ada did on not it in the at others in the Banati like thousands and the hit out on Nitty and the Washington level, then with the state level, keep Haba connection, no she be or that ego conk at ego and the Shizingi being such case what argo for that be. So why not all four of our sacred mountain rather than just one sacred mountain here? For our need for successful, then we got the others that probably will be in the same situation down the road. But that's just my statement or my comment to say that we could further move forward. And I believe the Navajo Nation have a lot of political position in having our Congress to make certain support or getting the support. So maybe have another thought about it, and then maybe we can be able to get another update of what the rationale. I don't know that the never come back in that I could that aided on the concept or not so what and his no stop ye go behind that so on he need to console the deed up on that he did I could be not so deals so new goes to add could Untitled Chapter they can't talk to that are just opportunities that you're sending the hit also show what don't hit it on the Hikishi Horn. So, but I'll leave it at that, Chairman. But nonetheless, I don't know. Like I said, is it possible to just rather than getting just having one of our sacred mountains be registered, and then we got the other three to continue to be worried about it? They're in a different state. I mean, why not go at the federal level and try to move for some form of a protection on it with any major development? just the way that Chaco Canyon is being looked at, and so on. Okay, so Chairman, with that, let me go ahead and conclude my statement. Don't comment quite good, Chairman.
Okay, you've made some good points and questions of concern. So before I go back to Mr. Begay, let me recognize Honorable Herman Daniels. You have the floor.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much again, Kudo. Adonana Kudo should say Kudo. Kudan Zunago Adolaya Yaski Kudo that should say KL Begay Jr. Ani Kudo Baban to the kid I need Narada get this to Neliki. They could on Rada Martin Lenigi. Martin for a president eight level. It was it. Narada the Ben Sabi Hahoso. Not everything the horse is not Jin. I don't thought the in the year torture. I don't know go in a rate of Kitlange. I don't know what Ben Sa. In a rate the Cortez on a rate a ring of a Tyson. A cock on a rate to the case of it. The real legend of man, the never done me. If he had a dick, so that other about band to the case or let's say you had even as you go, or you have a band that's case of that data. A crocodile and his key of a kai. It's in the kai, I think for that in this less for the nail to the whole. For the nail to Caribe, I don't know that. Or the deal now, the naked crocodile. My face and bad hello. So I by a tip. And not all that like that. I don't know the legend that the honey, Hespris of a carter, Hespris cold of a carter. They have a husband yet, his this. Anigi, they are the legend had that gate the door. The cocoa or that ego that could on a gate I see those that are known, Nandi Kagi. Edo Yahons and Halano. Ko and as would happen that over the can at the great lord to go. The great go sleep. What is yes, what is because of one of it had a can. And now he can't that here. I'm going to rate the record here though with what that deal war. The rate can sun is off the deal was as you could get sun is on the rate the rango. On the day has been was all was what is Hego. Yan that here though. As I have only I don't know said in the Hadak gate. I don't that the thing. Over that out. Now I'll say that or Yaba needs in the odd. Or because I started day and I had a conrad or go sleep. Go sleep can send as on the question can send the ringo as in his and the Zurabans the need that is over the gun. The Jana right. Zurabans the need that yeah. Yeah, basically, I just have undergate door. I don't agree that also. But now they want to cry for a great element that I was also undergate. Over that, I got out here for Ban Fahaki, and Ecuador had Hasi and Lenigi a contact the car. I think for it, Selim Dale, it was red and Dale. Or that I got out. I don't know if it was me in the one day. I don't know if it was hit this Halmahosa. Your Toha, so as a care need, and it hits the
You get the hell not so. This not in it's in a way down. This not in a call. It was off Anigi. The way that you man get as a dam. This Anigi to I help. I don't know. It's not all busy. I don't know my way down. Not on. I don't my way down. Just the tree. Line just Anigi. Een geen nagels van de logo. Het tweede is in de way had of in dat het zonje. Die dan het de stoles. Die het verdeel de doles. Die dat die niet die dan. De reden dat hij also dan nog in de reden dat hij in de reden al constructen. De reden de cell mounts die is niet dat hier van. Is hij gaat het doles. Even een slat doles wat ook niet doen. Is hij na dus het slide is net als voor andere. Kwadaal dat aan de reden. De Henry Mountains. Even zit dat. Als je een hoofd gaat toch. Dus bezit dat niet. Zo even van niet. Kwadaal van niet. Lange je als je het voor even. Het is nou niet kan het toch toch. Wat dat daar ko. Dus dat de kwestie na. Dan ko. Kwadaal even. Het is dat is dat dan na het de je dan 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 na het voor het dan dan. Het dat zullen dat ko het gaat. Reden. Laat lezen het gaat goed. Het is dat het jaco. Het gewoon zich wel het zeer bij goed gewoon zich het gaat. Het is dat een daad. Ik kan arqueersen wat daar. Het gaat een naast het nog goed. Arqueersen dat je nationaal is slagen. Akkoord. Door die is een idee dat. Dus dat is nou wel op de goed. De racing is een beetje goed was. Met het laat me laat echt doen. So I did all that back with net or let's go Mr. Chair. I couldn't rate all the snap and rate up the other thicker mount the gisha. So no you had the could also say I knew it. The Hesperus Mount Hesperus. The gisha. So I see the Baba hates this and all the no. Well the grand of the Robin the gate. Yeah, cat learn and no. That carry control over that. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Daniels. Let me go back to Mr. Timothy Begay, and then I'll recognize Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Mr. Begay.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And thank you for the wonderful words that and some of the oral histories that you guys have put forward. Mr. Delegate Begay was, I think, was asking, having the mountains federally recognized. The nomination that we're working on right now is for a federal nomination, and it's really up to. Well, we have to work with the Forest Service. In this case, it's Coconino National Forest. We have to work with the Forest Service that mountain is on. So we're working with them. I know for Mount Blanca and I believe Hesperus is San Juan National Forest, and then Mount Taylor is Sibla National Forest. Ako ayot to yat ikan bayadaft kigito bansida Casey. Ako behasted then other. I think it was Mr. Daniels or Mr. Walker said, "To anfide kidet ida ache acho hino lanicho alchon kidet the nasto at and that the I can't that choben epidet don't kidet or she ha in yet Navajo Nation seal because in the little there it'll down the not I the also the nanny clinic the net beside the gate kigi jo ein kidet chapter art in the 110 chapter. Now you can't that don't get it other than so that that they had the door nail to that no that don't know by that here. I would ask yet do not ani da no shini che kin hilek esla ado large da sitani do kuje peshmans ani ya sitahi he kodo asaj epida ini tsna asaj da ilgal kodo I think he had na halin ko ede hot not out there nasty Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Begay. This is a very good discussion. Report in law, Mr. Begay. It's very interesting what is coming out of this. So I'll go ahead and go to Honorable Vice Chair Walker.
Thank you, Chairman, committee members, although the listening audience, although presenters, though, Mr. Begay, though, Mr. Stanfield from our HPD, although Shunanta, they have Ziki to Hela, but Ego, although the Bawint, but Asha, Niki. Dido Dishit put all the yacht Esha no the a call Bonetza with ego. A call our own Mr. Tahi with his work with the Navajo Nation's Human Rights Commission as a policy analyst has quite a bit of information on this subject. But echo I feel that we can look to him for information or guidance, advisement, if need be. With the chair, though, committee members, Navajo Nation's Human Rights Commission has been, for the past 10 years, have been really advocating to the different jurisdictions, to different authorities, different officials, all the way to the United Nations. Koho agent nan shitik iniki nishito kodo legislative branch Navajo Nation Council RDC ni klinigi nishito at eto ine kahoshin at eklatashin lange nani kahoyat ate oshk is just kidding, but nonetheless always be part of that advocacy for the Navajo Nation and the Navajo people, protecting our way of life. Most recently, I did have a meeting with Speaker Damon on this matter, talking about legislations, possibility of getting legislation to create a subcommittee or task force, and we said we would continue that discussion. And we also had another meeting recently called language not late task force subcommittee. Although, as we all know, government Edo had ya treaty with a quagge na initial lila to no bandit condas did el go did hold the go sleep agent a gun a quagge tahin nafigi cut the tahin nafigi to it touch it as clinic yasye Yego, Judo, what Eda, Inta, Ido, what Eda. What I ban Sarkis, a cob since Kijinana such a Tatsa Tahit Ego, Edo, Dida di Ninigidan. A co quite it, a hitna and the Hullo, and the she, the bond hot Eya. I yet asked such a Nakato, so which snake with the Dibana date. That did not eya. She according to ban saski so even a speaker ban yado Jahila na hat adasa told so soben na shaba wind idol jo what I bet na hate ziko Edot shan gilbahas and auditionanta. Koho Joshin Kahadol Soto Abe Klada Hodilna. Some of the recommendations I've heard today, comments are certainly helpful, and we are certainly in line with our concerns. Other ways to advocate, ways to protect the interests of our people. And like I said, in our case, this is the cultural preservation. I see potati quite even ishin hidati ko hodayet bajodish action and chairman adoti ton tolle task force in the ligi akot abonet za to hatalia task force gi bishpans an tato advisory council to mahullo ado gati ahito HPD do speaker's office do joda dandan pinko jo eti di aje hot egi gen ko do it at do inat ani de kwate gen is that dan something ko da abonet zate si aje ta how should say Honorable Daniels but echo could di do shin could ego be bandit abonet zako. Well, I thought the other thought I wanted to just put out there is that if there is to be an established task force or even a commission, Joko, the thing is the continuity of that beyond these election cycles. Or a quackito has Ani Hanana Kahoti Banda Nakat one council yent not a Kahot in Washington the Banat de could echo Junat that echo priorities that legislative concerns, legislative priorities, they change with leadership. Called DD adult not in adult the need Ane nature bahwind all yat ado hadoshin 8 a yego hizati at all the tisnas neligi bayilki abahatis chairman here and hadasin tadon ha in nego who mutia le bandit and trago and has digi here ko ide hot edole huntsodole.
Yeah, Honorable Vice Chair Walker for that. Let me go back to Mr. Begay. Mr. Begay?
Yes, Chairman. Thank you. As Mr. Walker was saying, that we do a lot of work with we've been doing work with the Human Rights Commission, and Rodney was over there, so he knows a lot of the history of how the MOA expired and what has happened. So I think Rodney's pretty well educated in that and on that side. And again, we have our doors open, like our director says, Richard Begay. Our doors are open during business hour, regulatory duty with the Navajo Nation. If you guys have any question, if you wanted to sit down and discuss some of these options and comments or even recommendations, our doors are always welcome. I believe that we have enough expertise in our office to address those issues that the committee may have, and even the speaker and even the president. So, I don't know if Eric wanted to add anything.
The only thing I wanted to share is, next week on Wednesday, we are going to sit down with HRC and, make a little bit more progress in kind of developing our plan and moving forward with some of the resolutions and consultation planning. So if anybody is interested in being a part of that, we'll be working with HRC on Wednesday of next week.
Are you done?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Freeland, you have the floor.
Chairman, thank you. Shinata, Yananate. I concluded my meeting with the governor here in Santa Fe. So I wanted to thank Historic Preservation Department, the staff, Richard, your team, Tim, my Che. Thank you for everything that you all do. This is just a comment. And I just want to say that because you guys have gone through a lot. You've been tested, you've been vetted, you've been everything. And, you know, I say this because of what other tribes say to us and how they treat us and what they disassociate our cultural affiliations at times. And, you know, I am one that will stand up for our tribe and our nation and our people. I don't say things derogatory towards other tribes or discredit them in any way. I would never do that out of respect. I have seen that before in several meetings that I've been in, where other tribes will say stuff about Navajo, and that's not right. And I know you know what I'm talking about, staff, and you have our support. You have my support, and you know, this happened to a meeting in Zuni, and I was quite surprised when I found this out as a new delegate at that time. But I just wanted to say thank you to the staff. You're so vital to everything culturally, language, tradition, and we look to you for guidance. We look to you for helping us. And, you know, and for myself, it's been a real learning process, yes. But I appreciate everything that you've all shared and taught me as well. And it goes a long way. And, you know, I just wanted to mention that, Chairman, and we need to support them all the way, wholeheartedly, because cultural affiliation is so important. And when other tribes don't give us the credit or don't recognize that, then that's an issue. We have our own ways, we have our own sites, we have our own language, and sometimes that's not respected, and that's hard to fathom as a leader. That's hard to take in when your own tribe is discredited in that way. And you know, I know these guys they've seen a lot, they've heard a lot as well. But just know you have the committee support, you have all of our support in any way, in any fashion. And we look to you for your continued guidance and your assistance in all of our matters related to the Navajo Nation. So, yeah, Chairman, just a comment for the staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Freeland, for your statement of support. I learned very much what I needed to absorb today. So, Mr. Begay, for your presentation. Thank you. Also to Mr. Eric Stanfield. Certainly appreciate this presentation. Honorable members of RDC, do you have any other comments or questions? Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote?
Chairman, I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay?
Chairman Kale votes green.
Thank you. Honorable Daniels?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart?
Green.
We have a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting. Motion carries. Excellent presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is
Moving
Tim
down.
McGay. Just wanted to thank the RDC for giving us some time to share some of the information that we work on and on behalf of HPD, our director, Richard Begay, Eric, and Tamara, Billy. And I just wanted to take the time out to say thank you. Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah. Thank you very much. We're on D, the last report here on the approved study by the Navajo Nation Human Research Review Board, a cultural, spiritual, and health impact assessment of oil drilling operations in the Navajo Nation areas of Counselor, Torreon, and Ojo Encino chapters. Presenter, Dr. David Sosi from the Diné Center Research and Evaluation Principal Investigator. Dr. Sosi, you have 20 minutes.
Oh, yat snat anin osleniki do unda beda kegit a hodits ashin.
Oh, what is that?
Okay, oh, abena ya o das sidle ek a hinani hodichi ni nslam. Ko le Council Delegate Daniels, Kiat in the Jago, Le Dago, Halchitra Adashik, Kedat, Hinani Todichini, Ko Yat do Adonda, Trotsoni, Dashe, Ko Tashedan or Sina, Ko Yat Adonda, not Odanet, Hachine, Dashe Shade, Okia Ani Dashanale, Ko Yat Honorable Chairman Nash, do Adonda Shitato, do Kedo Itata Sita Leko, because Mr. Council Delegate Walker, ko Yat Edo here, ko could Lake not Atzi, Ade Ya Ekast, Sanders. John le igisna shadow in le jared hodo edo ado igisna sha akonde keya pasa haloniki benina kujugoch na leko ko kut ko eti kwe khashin tsagna skagi aji large principal investigator in slon kut ya holchishin leko ko ke be hajon inasla Oko jo na ki to kishi din that's na khishla that's na khinda il kako alchonda sil khado bikede jo kodo IRB in hidini ishadi ya le nike findings gi presented that to Resource Development Committee. Do adon the Health, Education, Health and Human Service Committee. Do nana adon da ya koje bisma sa anado nana ado BIA do BLM do ado President of Office do Vice President of Office Resource Development ajit da nashiki ebetlikit da do ne do presented or silche dan hidin need leko Koko Ecuador ya Nikashne and Lindo Little Koko Jo do shit yesita Jo a Health Impact Assessment Committee in the Torion Counselor and Sino do unda not anidan Lenki Jo Ishita Daniel so do adonda ishi Mario Intencio, Kendrick Pinto, do Samuel Sage, jo hashin sogo large the way ako, the kedo kut ilia. Nana other shikai jagi do jo kut some of them are online. Teresa Semster with do ado Sonia Grant, do Hazel James do Esther Luce, the Nana Adon, the late Dr. Herbert Benali, Edo Ahasin Nzago, Nihika Adawan Leko. It's a two-part study. The study is over 60 pages. What I'm going to be presenting, it's some of the highlights that I thought was important to bring up. Because the study itself is close to 60 pages long, and it really goes into depth on what it's all about. So we have that available. The title of our presentation, though, the study is a cultural, spiritual, and health impact assessment of oil drilling operations in the Navajo Nation area of Consular, Torion, and Ojo Encino chapter. Back in 2018, we did the IRB approved a study, and that study was to be a two-part study. And so since then, we've implemented and we've been working on that. The first part again was completed back a couple years ago. That's the health impact assessment. And the health impact assessment is mainly an analysis from a medical perspective and then also scientific perspective, because there were some data that needed to be analyzed. So that's where they were involved in coming up with the study. And then the second part of the study, the cultural study at the Hajon in Nasala. So that's going to be the focus of my presentation today, part 2. But at the end, I'm going to be making reference to some of the key findings from part 1. Health impact assessment. So the chapter themselves really became concerned about the way things were happening over in the 3 chapter, mainly in Consular. There were a lot of oil companies coming in. Of course, so they asked to have a study done. And that study used apparatus like the one that's on your right. That's a machine. And that machine, it monitored the air pollution. So over on a weekly basis, it showed a hazardous level of the spike particle matter, 2.5. In the process, they also found that there's 7 toxic volatile organic compounds. Especially the formaldehyde, it was really at an elevated level. Of course, these are really dangerous chemical, especially formaldehyde. It's known to cause respiratory problem, and it really elevates asthma in the children and elderly. So that's the in order to do that, we conducted a survey of Consular chapter. There were 80 residents that participated in this survey, and they questioned 20 U.S. ranked health symptoms caused by daily exposure to over 200 nearby wells in Consular. The 20 questions, those are the 20 questions that are asked to detect medical symptoms most commonly reported by people living near oil well operation. So this survey and the 10 questions, we came to find out that over 90% reported sinus obstruction, pain, and sore throat. Over 80% reported cough, headaches, eye, irritation, sleep disturbance, joint pain, and fatigue. Over 60% reported shortness of breath, nosebleeds, and wheezing. All these medical health problem that people encounter all kind of goes back to the oil drilling operation, fracking. So the purpose and the data of Ebe Hajon in Nasala. So why did we wanted to do this? What were some of the things that we wanted to look at? So as we know, a lot of researches, other studies that have been done by other non-Indian, non-native, non-Navajo people coming onto the reservation. So they relied a lot on the Western methodology. We were dealing with issues that were facing the Navajo people. We decided to use the net lens. The net lens, it's used in our traditional teaching stories and ceremonies to examine the cultural and spiritual impact of oil and gas development in consular Oho and Sino, and then Torion chapters. And this process or this approach that we use, it's really different because we're incorporating our traditional ways into the study of a situation and a problem. And the study is to look at the impact of extractive industries in indigenous communities. And the purpose also is to communicate these impacts back to the community, and then also to help policymakers understand what is being faced by people living in the tri-chapter area because of oil drilling, though fracking. So we've come to find out that there's a lot of danger in that. In order to do that, we did a cultural survey, and we conducted that back in 2019 in both English and the Nebuzat, because we had several people from the community that helped us, as well as the college student. So we're thankful for their help. And that survey included 136 members of the tri-chapter community who participated in this survey. And the survey, we focus our analysis on the 16 questions on cultural and spiritual effects of oil and gas development. And in order to do that, so that's where we decided to use the analytic model of the Hajon in Nasala. As we all know, those are the 6 sacred mountains that surround our reservation. And then with each of these directions, there are certain knowledge and life application that has been assigned to them by the holy people. In that case, those were also assigned to And these 16 questions, though the response of 2,176 response, we divided that among the six mountains, the 6 areas. This is a chart that we came up with. The first column, this is the area of knowledge. At the middle column, a survey results on the questions that were posed. The last column, on your right, percentage of respondents with strong agreement. And the 16 questions, inside case, the mountain facing the east, our local leaders have spoken out against drilling, and no one at the tribal, state, and federal levels, including BLM and BIA, listened. 74% of the respondents strongly agreed on although despite communities objecting, the drilling continues. 81% of the respondents strongly agreed. The next one. People were misinformed when they agreed to permits. They thought it was for testing, not drilling. Because 79% of the respondents strongly agreed. Although South planning, our efforts to pass on healthy and prosperous environment to our children is being broken. 83% of the respondents strongly agreed. Although the next one, the peace of the people have been disrupted as a result of drilling and fracking. 85% of the people that responded strongly agreed on the although to the west in Lifeway, the oil companies have no respect for land, people, and life. And 86% of the people who responded strongly agreed. Actions by oil companies have divided families and communities. 85% of the people strongly agree on the although again, a West Jagogi Lifeway, since oil companies make their presence here, all life is continually changing for the worse. 82% of the people that responded on the surveys strongly agreed on the behavior of oil companies in getting a permit to drill shows their lack of concern for the community. 83% of the people that responded said that they strongly agreed on that. Although monies from oil companies for right to drill divided families, 82% of the people strongly agreed. To the north, because the land is being ruined, it will not be able to sustain the economy. 83% of the respondents strongly agreed. Although the insensitivity of oil and fracking companies toward our community leads to mental and physical hardship, 80% of the respondents strongly agreed. The oil companies know the community is in financial need and inappropriately entices landowners with money. 82% of the respondents agreed on the a lot of people went that way. oil companies do not respect sovereignty or Navajo Nation laws. 86% of the people say, we've seen that. Prayers and song. What I believe to be sacred is being destroyed by drilling. 85% of the people say, rare herbs that can help with health or disappearance since the drilling started. 62%. In our analysis of these findings, we found major community concern. One is that there's a major disruption of cat occurring in the tri-chapter area because of the increase in oil and gas development. The land ownership issues and intergenerational poverty are at the root of the problem. Survey respondents show a high level of agreement regarding negative impact of oil and gas development. Although these problems have been ongoing for a long time, but the federal and the state government have done little to improve the situation. Although from the first, or part one, the health impact assessment, there were recommendations made by the medical personnel and some of those that have reviewed the data from the scientific perspective.
Dr. Sosi?
Yes.
Dr. Sosi?
Oh,
your time ran out of 20 minutes. Honorable members of RDC, could you give Dr. Sosi an extra 5 minutes to complete? Honorable members.
Chairman. No, you're
Yes.
feeling, go ahead.
5 minutes, okay. Dr. Sosi, you have 5 minutes left.
okay. Yeah. Okay, recommendations from the first party, it says establish air pollution limits, monitor air emission at new oil and gas sites, and at critical nearby sites like homes, churches, and schools, chapter houses, and other gathering places. Provide indoor air filters for residents within a half a mile of oil and gas activities. Establish setback distance and require windbreakers. A call recommendation from the analysis. We're saying free, prior, and informed consent and consultation. Although it modifies state and federal revenue sharing so that community can also benefit. Although establish road maintenance fund and safety measures because the oil companies have really messed up a lot of the roads. Ensure transparency and transfer of complete information and lease agreement with allotment owners. Although in the uphold and implement principles of environmental justice, appoint a neutral ombudsperson to assist families and communities, although a dress transition. Although a restore cast job a kodo nel ingo ko ani askiti kekit the neck ekit nene do kwi lata. Ako Joe again coming to the Nikitzi, Jo Adiki, but Sando Equita, Nanatin Hashine, La, Aquita, Yasilla, a court that sneaky, Quenle, the sneaky sheen, a quantal clit Nahalan, Joha once, Anna Halan, quantal clit, a big doe, Jo A. Nantin Hashine, La, Hila, a co Adi cat, or a quit. Ako nana adon da H project net again has ani the fundamental law. Jo a nigo go so jo a it teaches respect, honor, and preserve our natural environment. Adon da a respect and honor the knowledge keepers has Twido Sani خاشين سكبنات هالونيكي بصدزن دو إندا كجا باهن هالونيكي دو نصن don't that's the most important thing. Ako khale ya che benna che put ya khai khil te do ke kiti ne do kha ne lo le ko nana adon da cho khoje shin yam juk ya is probably one of the most important teaching. It preserves our social structure. And I always say it's the cornerstone of our social structure. It's not neat. It's shine neat. A cordo ado but scale has all up as navito art. A cork the teaching, the principles of Kashin Eya had eased up and said Kisma, which is young. Has aniki nana adon the hamado haje do but haji je yachitisin do ado kuch hadit egi ajitisin do adon da ani otla digin halon joshin winzin leko a koga hajo yatiro ot ashe yape hajo asa ndit lesen leko. In closing, we had an individual named Robert Tohi. He was really instrumental in helping us. And one of his thoughts was this, and I take this quote: Indigenous people see the earth as a living entity, our mother. Before we extract something from the earth, we always ask, why is it here? Was it put here for a reason? Is it meant to be used for humans, or should it be left as part of nature? If we can recognize the interconnectedness of all things, will be okay. Study, we have that available. Of course, over about 60 pages ago, and it really gets into the detail of all the things that have been uncovered. And our traditional stories talk about Tito Hado Yesande, Hane Liao, Anahata,
Thank you, Dr. Sosi. Honorable members of RDC, let's have a motion and a second. Chairman, I'll Honorable Vice Chair Walker, motion, second by Honorable Freeland. Thank you. Are there any comments or questions, Nanda?
Chairman.
Honorable Freeland.
Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Sosi, thank you. Just listening to the report and the conclusions of your results, it sounds to me it's more like a survey than a scientific study. And I guess I was wanting to hear, effects of chronic health issues. How many effects from, methane or, cause these deterioration of health conditions. But there's a huge difference there and a huge disparity. Not to discredit the survey or anything, but I was wanting to hear more of a scientific health component on the report. I was hoping to hear that. As well as, I guess, having to include other chapters, surrounding chapters as well. I have Herfino and Naizi and Lake Valley as well that also are, that have gas and oil and gas within those areas. Have our people in those areas been studied as well, and as well as Pueblo Pintado to the south, Asia. And with all due respect to the tri-chapters, it goes around all the way from the north, or from the east to the south, to the west to the north. Have studies been conducted around some other surrounding chapters as well. So those are my comments, as well as, I appreciate the presentation, and I appreciate the information that was shared, but I guess I was wanting to hear some health issues related to oil and gas, if there's any studies that have been conducted. You mentioned asthma and some other issues, but really lingering effects. And I guess I think in terms of how uranium mining cause lung cancer or other types of ailments. Does that same sort of situation follow with oil and gas development? And is there any scientific data or proof of that? So those are my comments and questions, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland. Dr. Sosi, your response?
Okay. Okay. Like I indicated, this is a two-part study. The first one, Nikki, it really went into detail with regards to what kind of pollution exists in the air because of the oil drilling and fracking. The kind of pollution that is being released into the air, the water, the land, and then how those pollutants are getting into the people's lungs by them breathing it in. And the survey asking the people what kind of problem that they're having. So they did point out they're having respiratory problem, they're having asthma, although they're suffering eye irritation and different kind of things. So the health impact assessment really gets into the kind of sickness that people are experiencing from a perspective. So, and then the second part, the tri-chapter area. So they're the ones that requested that health impact assessment be done. And in the process of presenting our findings, there were some people that came around from other chapters that were interested in seeing if they can get the air monitor to be placed near their residence so that it can measure the air and the kind of pollution that might be present in there. So
Any other comments or questions? One other question, Dr. Sosi, what about other chapters? Pueblo Pintado.
We did a study based on the requests that came from the chapter. A Counselor Torion and Oho and Sino, they're the ones they formed a tri-chapter committee, and it was that committee that requested that a study be done. So if a similar study is to be done by some of these other chapters that are within vicinity of Toriongo, in vicinity of the three chapter, she thought we could go in and do a study.
Honorable members of RDC, any other comments or questions? We'll go ahead and vote to accept the report. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay, text his vote as green. Honorable Daniels?
Green.
Thank you. Honorable Freeland?
I'll vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Stewart?
Green.
Thank you. We have a vote of 5 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting. Motion carries. And we're at the conclusion of our meeting, close of meeting. Any other announcements? I believe we have a meeting at 7 in the morning, right, Mr. Tahi?
Chair, members of RDC, no, the meeting that was supposed to take place with the ranking member has been postponed. I am working with Mr. Carl Begay and on this, and we are narrowing down the dates between March 1st to March 3rd. That's my only announcement. Oh, one other thing, Chair, with the new approved dates that have occurred, I am going to be rearranging RDC's agenda calendars in order to accommodate some of those new meeting requests that have come up that need to take precedent. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Tahi, for that. And tomorrow we do have Nabagia committee meetings, and I know some of us will be traveling to Twin Arrows for the meeting on Friday morning. So we'll more than likely be on the road tomorrow afternoon to Twin Arrows. Motion to adjourn, Jananda.
Chairman, I
Motion. I second Freeland, Chairman.
Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Honorable Freeland.
Chairman, quick question.
Go
What
ahead.
time do we start on Friday at Twin Arrows?
At 9 o'clock, I believe, Mr. Tahi.
The chair, members of RDC, yes, the meeting does start at 9 o'clock. It is recommended that RDC members with the Navajo Department of Justice Water Right Unit and Navajo Nation Water Rights Commission attend in person. This is going to deal with the New Mexico water rights settlement, negotiation, and litigation. Invitation was also extended to delegates in New Mexico who are also going to be impacted by this litigation as well. There is going to be a conference line set up, and that conference line is going to be handled by the Department of Justice, Cecilia Thomas. So she's going to be the one that is going to be monitoring that conference line. And she did send out an email notifying RDC members on it and not to forward that email or the conference information as well. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Tahi. Honorable members of RDC, any other questions? None. Honorable Vice Chair Walker, how do you vote?
I vote green.
Thank you. Honorable Begay. Honorable Daniels.
Mr. Chair, not red,
Red.
green.
You're going to be the only one on the call. Honorable Freeland.
I think my brother wants some red chili. I vote green.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland, for representing RDC at the New Mexico Governor's meeting. Honorable Stewart.
Green tonight, Chairman.
Thank you. Honorable Begay. We have a vote of 4 in favor, 0 opposed, chair not voting, motion carries. Shanand, thank you for your dedication, the work that you do serving your communities and the great Navajo Nation. Thank you, Mr. Tahi, Ms. Woody, Ms. Khan, and Ms. Yako. Thank you very much. God bless each and every one of you. Be safe out there, and we'll be on the meeting tomorrow. It is now 3:31 p.m. We are officially adjourned. Hakona.